Hi, so today we're going to be fixing the lower igniter on this Samsung gas oven range. The model on this is NX60T8111SG/AA. So this all of a sudden just failed. It just stopped working down below. I think we did a couple cleaning cycles within a couple weeks of each other, and the igniter it fell apart. And now it's about Christmas time, and my daughter would like to make cookies, so it's imperative that we get this fixed. And these are the parts that you're going to need to do this job. You're going to need a level. You're going to need a flashlight. This is 7mm you're going to need, 7mm socket. Pretty standard Phillips head screwdriver, and of course the replacement igniter part. And I'll put a link in the description so you can see where I got it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the model. So the model is located right underneath here on this top left side. So it's a little bit tough. It's good to get your camera underneath, maybe take a photo, and then just make sure that it's this NX60T8111SG model. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn off the power and we're going to turn off the gas. So you can go ahead and hit the breaker, and then we're going to go outside, as you can see here in this video, and we're going to make sure, this is a propane stove, we're going to make sure that the propane is off. So no power, no gas while we're working on the stove. So next what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stripping down the oven and the grates. It'll make it easier to move the oven around and to get into where we need to get to. So let's go ahead and do that now. So now that we've removed the grates, we've pulled out the racks from the oven, we're now going to hold off on doing anything inside, and we're going to pull the oven out. But we're going to pull the oven straight out. We're going to be careful of the countertops and any wires and so on. And as you can see here, I haven't yet unpowered the remove power from the oven, so I'll do that from the plug in the back, but the gas is off. So now that we have access to the back of the oven, we're going to be removing 4 screws. There's a screw right here, as you can see, or barely see. Similar screw on the other side. There are 2 screw holes underneath, depending on whether the manufacturer has decided to put them in or not. In my case, there are no screws, so it's really just 2 screws, which we'll use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove. Now once you get the screws out, the back cover has these locking tabs. So all you have to do is lift up on the back cover, and it will pull away. So set the back cover aside. You can see that the main part of the oven's been exposed here. Now what we're going to do, now that we have that done, is we're going to remove the shield from the igniter opening here. So it's just 1 screw, again Phillips head. We're going to go at it. We're going to remove the shield. And now that that's been removed, we're going to unplug the igniter. And literally all we have to do here is squeeze these tabs and pull that igniter out, the feed for the igniter out. Now there's this little strain relief tool here that they've been able to keep the wires tensioned, and we're going to remove it pretty simply from the wire. I'm just going to put it back here so I know where it goes. And now note that the wiring harness for the igniter is free, and this is really what we want to get to at this stage in the back. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go back to the front, and we're going to work on getting the igniter out from the front side. Okay, so now we're looking into the front of the oven. As you can see from before, the racks are out. I put a light in there so that's a little bit easier to see. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to remove these 2 pans that are down below. We're going to start with 2 screws at the back, 2 Phillips heads. Just don't let the screws drop in below. Of course, we keep track of all of our hardware. So we get our 2 screws out. Now what we have is we have 2 screws in the front, so we're going to go ahead and take those out. So one here, one there. Once those 2 screws are out, we're going to lift the pan out. Now there's some tabs here, so you have to lift it up and out. So now that we have the pans out, now we have access to the burner. And you can actually see with the location of the igniter right back here. And because we freed up the wiring harness, this should pull out quite easily. But the first thing we need to do, remove the burner shield, which is right back here. So that's this screw right here we're going to take out. Again, don't let it fall down into the burner or into the lower section. And this little shield just pulls out. So there it is. Next we have 2 screws. We have one right down here. I know it's hard to see on the camera, but it's underneath this lip. And then we have one here. And these 2 screws hold the burner in place. And it's a very specific place because of the location of the nozzle here. So we're going to go ahead and take out these 2 screws, again carefully. And watch out, there might be some sharp parts in here, so you don't want to get cut. Okay. So we have the screws out. Now what we do is we slide the burner out leftwise, and you can now pull it out and up. You'll see what happens here. We get this full assembly, including the igniter. The igniter is held on by these 2 bolts right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take those off using a 7mm socket. We're going to get that right out of there. Just don't lose any of the parts. Again, there's all sorts of places for screws to get lost inside the oven. See it right there. And then the igniter comes out. Now if you notice this igniter here, you can see actually it's sort of a coil type igniter, and the carbon is all sorts of broken. But here's a little bit of detail about this igniter. I went to go look it up online and found a replacement. The replacement I have is different in design. It actually has these sort of carbon forks instead of this this wound type of igniter design. And now I do have the other igniter with me, and I did purchase it online, and it looked like it was very similar. And this is the new one. It's nearly identical. It has some differences. The key here is to be super gentle with this. If you drop it or you bang it up against something, there are numerous reports online with even other models of stoves and other igniter models of these filaments breaking. So can't let that happen. So let's go ahead and do that now. So now that we've removed the old igniter, we're going to carefully replace with the new igniter. So we're going to line up our holes, and they fit. They appear to fit. We're going to drop in our screws and our nuts. I see I'm on a frame here, so hopefully you can see that. Get it snugged up, and now tighten it. So that feels really good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to feed the wire connector towards the back there. Feels like it's pushed out. And now carefully, super carefully, navigate the front of this underneath the lip. And the idea is once you get into place, you should slide it in to where it needs to be. So there is, okay, there it is, right there. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw in the very back. So have my screw loaded up here. I'm going to line up the hole and I'm going to go for it. Drive that screw right in. That's one. Second one here. Next up, we're going to put the burner shield back. Roll it back into place. And that should fit real nice in there, and the hole should line up. Get our screw. Now all these screws are the same size, by the way, so you don't have to keep track of them. They're all sheet metal screws. Okay, that one's on. Okay, so we got the burner back in place, the igniter's in place, the wire's poking out the back of the unit. The heat shield is in place for the burner. So that's all good. So now what we're going to do is reinstall the trays. So we get the lower tray. I'm sure there's a better name for this. It's in place. Now we're not going to put the two back screws on. We're going to do the two front screws. Hand thread some of this in. One there, one here. Alright, and now we're going to take the upper tray. Upper tray has two tabs on it, so we're going to line those tabs up right here. We're going to drop it down. We're going to put our screws in. Okay. All right. Front is done. So now it's time to go to the back again. Okay, so we're back to the back. And the first thing we're going to do is, you can see here, this is the wiring harness for the new igniter. We're going to route it through this holder here. You can take the holder off if you like. But this is kind of how it should look right here. And then you're going to put the connector back on. Now notice the connector only goes on one way. It's keyed due to the shape of the prongs on the connector. So basically that's the way it is. Now I'm not going to over tighten this here because this is sort of a sharp edge and I don't want to have the oven strip away at the connector. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bend this a little bit and form the wire so it can accommodate the shield a little better without touching up against. So the last thing we want are wires rubbing against sharp metal. So I'm just going to make sure that there's a nice service loop right there. So this seems good. The next step is we're going to reinstall the back tray. So again, here we go. You put it into place and slide it down. And so it kind of locks with these two things in place, but as you know, we have 2 of the 4 available screws. And I'm going to go and put one there. And one there. Super easy. Okay, now that we've installed everything, we're safe. We still have to put the grates on and the racks in the oven, but we're going to test the unit. So now it's time to turn the gas back on, power it back up, and fire up the oven to see if it works. So now that we've installed the back cover to the oven, we're about to reapply power. We're going to turn the gas back on. And the next step is to check to make sure that the igniter is working and that we can light the oven for bake. So we have power back on. The oven's blinking 12 noon. I'm not going to put the oven in place yet until we're sure that we actually have a fire down here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit bake. Remember, bake will fire up the bottom here and then broil will be the top. So I'm going to hit bake, 350, start. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I shut the door so that we can see inside. I think you can see the glow in there. But the igniter lit up and it is heating up. And I think when the door is open, it's not going to, it's going to shut off the gas. So you do have to shut the door just to double check. But I'm going to put my hand in there and see if we have heat. Oh, and we do. So that is absolutely working. I'm going to shut the oven off. And that's all great. So our last step is to move the stove back into place. We're going to be very careful. We're going to be careful of the gas hose, the wires behind the oven, and of course we don't want to chip or break the countertops alongside the oven. So we're going to have to align it and slide it in very carefully, which we're going to do right now. So now with the oven in place, I'm going to put the racks back in and the grills back on the top. So now that the oven is back in place, we've slid it back carefully, no damage to the floor, the wires behind it and the gas line folded nicely in the back of the oven. We've tested the oven, the power's on, the gas is on. We're all good except one thing, and it's really important to make sure that the oven is level. So one of the tools, of course, that you need is a level. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to check that. We're going to check it both horizontally, we're right on the money, and well, in 2 dimensions at least. And so this is very much level. You need to have this level, otherwise cooking eggs, other things that will slide around the pot and so on. So that's it. I hope this video helped you and you can get the information you need and do a good job without breaking any parts and of course getting back up and running with your oven. Good luck.